Good morning. In my hibernation series, today I bring you the story of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, or Temujin, was born around 1162 near the border between modern Mongolia and Siberia. Legends hold that he came into the world clutching a blood clot in his right hand. His mother had been kidnapped by his father and forced into marriage. At that time, dozens of nomadic tribes on the Central Asian steppe were constantly fighting and stealing from each other, and life for Temujin was violent and unpredictable. Before he turned 10, his father was poisoned to death by an enemy clan, Temujin's own clan, that deserted him, his mother, and his six siblings in order to avoid having to feed them. Did you know? Mongol leader Genghis Khan never allowed anyone to paint his portrait, sculpt his image, or engrave his likeness on a coin. The first images of him appeared after his death. Shortly thereafter, Temujin killed his older half brother and took over as head of the poverty stricken household. In 1178, Temujin married Botti, with whom he had four sons and an unknown number of daughters. He launched a daring rescue of Botte after she too was kidnapped, and he soon began making alliances. Alliances are very important in history, building a reputation warrior and attracting a growing number of followers. Going against custom, Temujin put competent allies rather than relatives in key positions and executed the leaders of enemy tribes while incorporating the remaining members into his clan. Though, though Temujin was an animist, his followers included Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists. By 1205, he had vanquished all rivals, including his former best friend Jamuka. The following year, he called a meeting of representatives from every part of the history and established a nation similar in size to modern Mongolia. He was also proclaimed Chinggis Khan, which roughly translates to universal ruler, a name that became to known in the West as Genghis Khan later. Having united the steppe tribes, Genghis Khan ruled over some 1 million people. In order to suppress the traditional causes of tribal warfare, he abolished inherited aristocratic titles. He also forbade the selling and kidnapping of women, banned the enslavement of any Mongol, and made livestock theft punishable by death. Moreover, Genghis Khan ordered the adoption of a writing system, conducted a regular census, granted diplomatic immunity to foreign ambassadors, and allowed freedom of religion well before that idea caught on elsewhere. Genghis Khan's first kingdom, Xixia of northwestern China, after a series of raids the Mongols launched a major initiative in 1209 that brought them to the doorstep of Inchuan, the Xizia capital. Unlike other armies, the Mongols traveled with no supply train other than a large reserve of horses. So here you understand that the Mongols never carried any food with them, but they carried large horses with them. The army consisted almost entirely of cavalrymen who were expert riders and deadly with bow and arrows. At Inchuan, the Mongols deployed a false withdrawal, one of their signature tactics, and then initiated a siege. Though their attempt to flood the city failed, the Xizia ruler submitted and presented tribute. The Mongols next attacked the Jin dynasty of northern China, whose ruler had made the mistake of demanding Genghis Khan's submission. From 1211 to 1214, the outnumbered Mongols ravaged the countryside and sent refugees pouring into the cities. Food shortages became a problem, and the Jin army ended up killing tens of thousands of its own peasants. In 1214, the Mongols besieged the capital of Zhongdu, and the Jin ruler agreed to hand over large amounts of silk, silver, gold, and horses. When the Jin ruler subsequently moved his court south to the city of Kaifeng, Genghis Khan took this as a breach of their agreement and, with the help of Jin deserters, sacked Zhongdu to the ground. In 1219, Genghis Khan went to war against Quarem Empire in present day Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. The Sultan there had agreed to a trade treaty, but when the first caravan arrived, its goods and were stolen and its merchants were killed, the Sultan then murdered some of Genghis Khan's ambassadors. Despite once again being outnumbered, the Mongol horde swept through one Khwarizm city after another, including Bukhara, Samarkand, and Urgench. Skilled workers such as carpenters and jewelers were usually saved, while aristocrats and resisting soldiers were killed. Unskilled workers, meanwhile, were often used as human shields during the next assault. No one knows with any certainty how many people died during Genghis Khan's wars. In part because the Mongols propagated their vicious image as a way of spreading terror. Genghis Khan's death and continuation of the empire when Genghis Khan returned to Mongolia in 1225. He controlled a huge swath of territory from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian Sea. Nevertheless, he didn't rest for long before turning his attention back to the Xizia kingdom, which had refused to contribute troops to the Khwarizm invasion. In early 1227, a horse threw Genghis Khan to the ground, causing internal injuries. He pressed on with the campaign, but his health never recovered. He died on August 18th, 1227, just before Xizia were crushed. Genghis Khan conquered more than twice as much land as any other person in history, bringing Eastern and Western civilizations into contact in the process. His descendants, including Ogdai and Kublai, were also prolific conquerors, taking control of Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the rest of China, among other places. The Mongols even invaded Japan and Java before their empire broke apart in the 14th century. Genghis Khan's last ruling descendant was finally deposed in 1920. So, this is the story of Genghis Khan, the famous ruler who could never enter India because of the physical features which India had on the northern side. The Himalayas always protected India from foreign invasions. They stand as a great barrier between us and the enemies on the other side. Thank you.